Stop scrolling on the scandal and look at the clock. That is the real story. The internet is not spiraling because an old room, an old phone call, and an old clip suddenly materialized. The internet is spiraling because the clip arrived at a surgical moment, and timing changes meaning. One dusty piece of footage can sit unseen for years and feel harmless. The same footage can land during a tense public chapter and feel like a warning shot. That is why people are staring at the Beyoncé clip and asking one question louder than every other question. Why now? Not why back then. Not why was the room strange. Not why does the image feel uncomfortable. Why now? Why this week? Why during a moment when JayZ has looked unusually visible, unusually vocal, and unusually determined to control the public frame around the Carter name? That timing is where the temperature changes. That timing is where gossip stops being gossip and starts feeling like strategy. And once strategy enters the room, every detail starts breathing differently. The hand placement looks different. The empty chairs look different. The excitement on Beyoncé's face looks different. The release path looks different. Even silence looks different. A random resurfaced clip creates chatter. A precisely timed resurfaced clip creates suspicion. And the suspicion is not really about one video. The suspicion is about a machine. The suspicion is about vault culture, pressure culture, humiliation culture, and the quiet power of making a superstar trend for the exact wrong reason at the exact right moment. That is the lane this story is speeding down, and that is why this conversation is bigger than shock value. Because here is the piece too many people are skipping. Nobody sane should turn a 19-year-old Beyoncé into the villain of a room full of older power brokers. That would be lazy, cruel, and intellectually bankrupt. A young Beyoncé in a room designed by older men is not a power story about Beyoncé. A young Beyoncé in a room designed by older men is a power story about the men. A young Beyoncé trying to get a moment with Michael Jackson is not a scandal. A young Beyoncé showing visible excitement while an older man invites Beyoncé onto a lap is a snapshot of access politics. That distinction matters. That distinction matters because viral discourse loves the easiest target, and the easiest target is often the person inside the image rather than the system around the image. But the clip keeps landing with force because viewers can feel the imbalance immediately. The room feels old. The room feels transactional. The room feels like invisible rules are operating before a single viewer understands the full backstory. Empty seats exist. A lap invitation still happens. A waist hold still happens. Laughter still floats around the moment like awkward perfume. And Beyoncé, at an age when ambition can override every internal alarm, looks locked on the prize of speaking with Michael Jackson. That emotional contrast is brutal. Excitement on one side. Control on the other side. Innocence on one side. Conditioning on the other side. Viewers do not need a leaked memo to sense that imbalance. Viewers only need one screen grab. That is why the image spread so fast. The image carries a whole essay in one frame. The frame says access has a price. The frame says gatekeepers know that price. The frame says a young star can be taught to ignore discomfort if the reward feels legendary enough. Now add the second layer, because the second layer turns discomfort into suspicion. JayZ has not exactly been hiding lately. JayZ has looked active. JayZ has looked strategic. JayZ has looked interested in moving first instead of waiting for the next headline to move against the Carter brand. Interviews, public visibility, tour energy, family appearances, image management, and a general sense of offense instead of defense have all fed the same impression. JayZ wants the wheel back. That impression matters because public life runs on invisible negotiations. Whenever a major figure starts reclaiming narrative control, every rival network, every irritated insider, every threatened associate, and every silent archive suddenly feels more relevant. That does not prove a coordinated strike. That does explain why viewers instantly read the Beyoncé clip as more than random nostalgia. The public understands leverage even without seeing the contract. The public understands pressure even without hearing the call. The public understands that embarrassing material does not need to prove a crime to do damage. Embarrassing material only needs to trigger a conversation the target cannot fully control. That is the genius of symbolic warfare. Symbolic warfare does not always expose. Symbolic warfare destabilizes. Symbolic warfare muddies. Symbolic warfare takes a family trying to look composed and forces that family into a fresh wave of questions, jokes, think pieces, and moral panic. A single image can do that. A single clip can do that. A single old moment, revived at the perfect second, can blow a hole straight through a polished public rollout. So when viewers say the release feels intentional, viewers are not necessarily claiming proof. Viewers are reading the temperature of celebrity power the same way gamblers read a table. Viewers are looking at timing, incentives, and impact. And impact is the word that keeps this whole conversation alive. Because ask a simpler question. If a documentary team, media outlet, rights holder, archivist, insider, or associate had 10 different old clips available, why choose this one? Why pick the image most likely to generate visceral discomfort in under 3 seconds? Why pick the frame that compresses innocence, ambition, age imbalance, physical closeness, and elite access into one viral package? Why pick the footage that can embarrass JayZ without requiring a direct allegation against JayZ? That is the elegance of the move. If the move was a move, the move did not need a criminal reveal. The move only needed a public relations detonation. The move only needed millions of people to share one sentence. Why is Beyoncé sitting on that man's lap? Once that sentence catches fire, every surrounding conversation starts multiplying on its own. Where was guidance? Who approved the environment? Who protected whom? Who normalized what? Who still has more footage? That last question is the one powerful people hate most, because the existence of one vault implies the possibility of another vault. And the existence of another vault creates a terrible psychological pressure. Suddenly the conversation is not only about what the public can see. The conversation is about what the public cannot see yet. That is how a single clip expands into a shadow universe of possibilities. Not facts. Possibilities. But viral ecosystems do not wait for certainty. Viral ecosystems feast on the feeling that certainty is being withheld. Once the public senses withheld certainty, curiosity starts doing heavy labor for free. Every repost becomes a siren. Every reaction clip becomes a booster rocket. Every freeze frame becomes a courtroom sketch drawn in public. This is also why the moral center of the story matters so much. A sloppy version of this story says, "Look how bad Beyoncé looks." A smarter version says, "Look how bad the system looks." A sloppy version turns a young Beyoncé into clickbait bait. A smarter version asks what kind of industry teaches a young Beyoncé that access to greatness may require surrendering comfort, space, or dignity for a moment that can later be monetized by someone else. That is not a small difference. That is the difference between gawking and understanding. Because entertainment history is packed with glamorous rooms that only look glamorous from the outside. Inside those rooms, power is usually older, richer, more connected, and completely fluent in ambiguity. Nothing has to be written down. Nobody has to say the ugliest part out loud. The lesson can still be learned. Sit here. Smile now. Take the call. Play along. Do not break the mood. Do not offend the gatekeeper. Do not ruin access. A young artist does not need a handbook to decode that hierarchy. A young artist only needs repetition. One room teaches the next room. One compromise teaches the next compromise. One laugh teaches the next silence. That is why so many viewers looked at the clip and felt less like spectators and more like witnesses to a ritual. Not a ritual of celebration. A ritual of conditioning. The industry often hides coercion inside excitement because excitement photographs better. Excitement sounds cleaner. Excitement helps everybody pretend agency existed in a room built on imbalance. But a room can be celebrated and predatory at the same time. Celebrity culture loves that contradiction because celebrity culture survives on that contradiction. And then another darker thought kicks in. What if the real message was not even meant for the public first? What if the public was simply the delivery mechanism? That possibility changes the whole atmosphere. Because a public leak can function like a private memo when the target knows exactly what else may exist. The internet sees one clip. The target may see a menu. The public sees one awkward moment. The target may see a reminder that archives do not forget, insiders do not all stay loyal, and timing can be weaponized by anybody with access and motive. That is why old footage can feel strangely modern the second old footage resurfaces. Age does not matter as much as deployment. A 15-year-old clip launched at the right second is more dangerous than a fresh clip launched at the wrong second. The internet measures age. Power measures leverage. And leverage cares about pressure points, not timestamps. So if Beyoncé trends because of discomfort, JayZ feels the pressure. If JayZ feels the pressure, every current battle around the Carter image gets noisier. If every current battle gets noisier, then the release already succeeded, whether the release was casual, calculated, or somewhere in between. Success in that game does not require a confession. Success only requires destabilization. Success only requires stealing oxygen. Success only requires one ugly screenshot outrunning every carefully staged public appearance that came before. That is why this story hits harder than a normal throwback embarrassment. The clip did not simply revive a memory. The clip hijacked momentum. A good public relations team can plan a week. A brutal leak can erase a week in 20 minutes. Notice something else the internet keeps circling back to: the room itself. People are not only reacting to Beyoncé. People are reacting to atmosphere. Atmosphere is the hidden script of every viral image. The age contrast in the room matters. The body language in the room matters. The invitation matters. The fact that other seating appears available matters. The fact that the phone call with Michael Jackson becomes the glittering reward matters. The framing creates a miniature power drama so efficient that viewers start writing subtext instinctively. No one needs a narration track. The room narrates itself. A young Beyoncé appears eager and thrilled. Older men appear comfortable. The man holding space and body proximity appears casual in a way that makes the public uncomfortable. That imbalance is what makes the clip spread like gasoline. Viral images that last usually do one thing very well. Viral images force the audience to finish the sentence. This clip forces the audience to finish several sentences at once. What was Beyoncé taught? What did Beyoncé believe was normal? What did powerful men believe was acceptable? What other moments like this never reached daylight? Once a clip generates unfinished sentences, retention takes care of itself. That is why millions of views arrive fast. That is why think pieces multiply. That is why reactions do not stay neutral. A neutral reaction cannot survive a frame like that. The frame is too loaded. The frame is too legible. The frame looks like a hidden rule made visible for one accidental second, and hidden rules are catnip for an audience already suspicious of celebrity power. Now look at how the smartest coverage angle separates emotion from evidence without losing tension. The strongest version of this story does not scream proof where proof does not exist. The strongest version of this story says something more dangerous. The optics alone are devastating, and the timing multiplies the damage. That framing is powerful because audiences trust careful outrage more than reckless outrage. Careful outrage says the clip is troubling, the release is strategic looking, the public reaction is understandable, and the broader pattern of grooming by power structures deserves serious attention. Careful outrage does not need to invent a charge. Careful outrage lets the existing image do most of the work. The image is already uncomfortable. The release is already suspicious. The history of young talent being maneuvered by older gatekeepers is already well documented across entertainment. So the script does not need fantasy. The script needs discipline. The script needs to ask precise questions with sharp timing. Who authorized release? Who benefits from renewed discomfort around the Carter name? Why surface a clip centered on Beyoncé rather than JayZ directly? Why use a moment that humiliates through implication rather than accusation? That last move is especially vicious. Direct accusations can be denied. Implications linger. Implications sit in the search bar. Implications collect under every photo. Implications haunt every appearance because implications invite the audience to keep solving a puzzle with no official endpoint. That is why implication is such an efficient weapon. Implication recruits the public into doing the spreading for free. And once public participation starts, the story mutates beyond anybody's original plan. Some people focus on the industry. Some people focus on JayZ. Some people focus on Tina Knowles. Some people focus on Michael Jackson. Some people focus on the unnamed older man in the footage. Some people focus on documentary motives. Some people focus on media motives. Some people focus on the possibility that powerful circles are sending messages to one another through public embarrassment. That fragmentation does not weaken the clip. That fragmentation strengthens the clip. Fragmentation turns one upload into 10 different controversies, and each controversy opens a new lane of traffic. One viewer clicks for Beyoncé. Another viewer clicks for industry grooming talk. Another viewer clicks for JayZ politics. Another viewer clicks for Michael Jackson curiosity. Another viewer clicks for hidden footage panic. Viral architecture loves multi-lane traffic because multi-lane traffic means the clip can survive criticism from one angle and still explode through 3 others. Even people who reject the threat theory still end up boosting the clip by debating the threat theory. Even people who insist coincidence still repeat the exact image that gave the theory fuel. That feedback loop is not accidental to the platform age. Platform age rewards emotional multiplicity. A clip that triggers only disgust fades faster. A clip that triggers disgust, curiosity, fear, sympathy, anger, and status anxiety travels farther. This clip does exactly that. The clip makes some viewers protective of Beyoncé. The clip makes some viewers suspicious for JayZ. The clip makes some viewers furious at older industry men. The clip makes some viewers terrified about what vaults may still hold. One clip, 6 emotions, endless replay value. So where does a truly smart script land? A truly smart script lands on power, not prurience. A truly smart script tells the audience that the most chilling part may not be the lap at all. The most chilling part may be the possibility that moments like this can be archived, preserved, and redeployed years later whenever a pressure point is needed. That possibility takes the story out of nostalgia and drops the story into blackmail logic, even if no courtroom ever uses that word. A machine does not always need illegal leverage to create real fear. A machine only needs asymmetry. One side knows what exists. The other side knows what may exist. That uncertainty alone can discipline behavior, shape alliances, and punish overconfidence. If JayZ has been moving like a figure ready to reclaim ground, a resurfaced Beyoncé clip can function like a brutal reminder that public power has ceilings. Somebody always has another file. Somebody always knows another room. Somebody always kept another tape, another call sheet, another blurry angle, another forgotten seat at another very expensive table. Celebrity mythology sells control. Archive culture quietly mocks control. No matter how iconic the name, no matter how polished the brand, no matter how carefully the appearances are staged, old moments can still break formation and rewrite the week. That is why this conversation rattles people. The clip does not only make Beyoncé look vulnerable in hindsight. The clip makes fame itself look vulnerable in real time. And the final twist is almost cruel in a different way. The public may never get a clean answer. The public may never get a press release that says yes, this was time to send a message. The public may never get a confession from a gatekeeper explaining why the clip left the vault on this particular day. But absence of confirmation does not erase meaning. In celebrity ecosystems, impact often tells the story long before paperwork does. If a clip creates embarrassment, distraction, media churn, algorithmic fire, and a fresh cloud over a family trying to look unbothered, the clip has already performed a function. Maybe deliberate. Maybe opportunistic. Maybe both. And that is why this story refuses to die quietly. The story touches fame, youth, power, image control, predatory access, protective parenting, public relations warfare, and the terrifying idea that old footage can be repurposed like ammunition. That bundle is too combustible to disappear in a day. So the real question is no longer whether the clip feels creepy. Millions of people already answered that question. The real question is whether the clip was simply unearthed or strategically deployed. Because if the clip was strategically deployed, then Beyoncé was not only the face in the frame. Beyoncé was the pressure point. And if Beyoncé was the pressure point, then the clip was never really about the past. The clip was about leverage in the present. That is why the image feels bigger than a throwback. That is why the timing feels louder than the footage. And that is why the internet keeps coming back to the same cold sentence. Somebody chose this moment. So if this story gets told the right way, the closing thought should hit like a locked door. Not every warning arrives as an accusation. Not every threat arrives as paperwork. Sometimes a warning arrives as an old clip, a fresh upload, and a trending question nobody can erase. Sometimes a warning arrives wrapped in nostalgia so the sender can dismiss every reaction as static. Sometimes a warning arrives through the most vulnerable face in the circle because vulnerability travels faster than confrontation. That is what makes the Beyoncé footage so unsettling. The footage shows how quickly image, timing, and unresolved discomfort can merge into a public event. A public event becomes a social trial. A social trial becomes a search result. A search result becomes residue that follows a name for months. That chain reaction is the real weapon. So the frame is disturbing. Yes, the room looks wrong. Yes, the timing is deafening. But the sharpest question remains. Who needed the Cardi world to see Beyoncé in that room right now?